We often believe that our world is governed by logic and safety. But history hides dark corners where logic fails and survival is impossible. There are moments when the line between life and death vanishes in an instant. Tonight, we explore 3 chilling cases where every single soul was lost. Welcome to the stories where no one survived to tell the truth. Our first story takes us to the frozen wilderness of the Soviet Union. In 1959, 9 experienced hikers set out for the Ural Mountains. They were young, strong, and prepared for the brutal winter conditions. But they were heading toward a destination the locals called Dead Mountain. None of them knew that this would be their final journey together.
In the middle of the night, something terrified them beyond reason. Investigation photos showed their tent was sliced open from the inside. They fled into the sub-zero darkness without boots or heavy coats. Some were found huddled around a small fire, dying of hypothermia. But others suffered injuries that defied any logical explanation of the time.
One victim was missing her tongue. Another had a crushed skull. Strange traces of radiation were found on their discarded clothing. The official report blamed an unknown compelling force for the tragedy. Locals whispered about glowing orbs seen in the sky that night. Whatever happened on that mountain, it stripped them of their humanity.
The Dyatlovpass remains one of the world's greatest mysteries. 9 lives ended in total terror, leaving only questions behind. Even today, hikers avoid the area when the winter winds howl. They say the mountain remembers the screams of those who fled. But we move from the mountains to a lonely farm in Germany.
Year was 1922 at the remote Hinterkaifeck farmstead. Andreas Gruber noticed something strange days before the tragedy occurred. New footprints in the snow led from the woods towards his house. But as he followed them, he realized there were no return tracks. Someone had entered the farm, but they had never left.
Inside the house, the family began to hear footsteps in the attic. A set of keys went missing, and a newspaper appeared they hadn't bought. Andreas searched the property with a tool in hand, but found no one. He didn't realize that the killer was watching them from the shadows, living in their walls, eating their food, waiting for the perfect moment.
On a cold Friday night, the entire family was lured into the barn. One by one, they were struck down with a heavy mattock tool. Even the new maid, who had arrived only hours before, was not spared. The killer stayed in the house for days afterward, tending the cattle. He lived with the corpses of his victims before vanishing forever.
Our final stop is Villiscaaxemurders, Iowa, in the summer of 1912. The Moore family and 2 young guests were asleep in their beds. A killer who had hidden in the attic for hours finally emerged. He carried an axe and moved with chilling, silent precision. By dawn, 8 people had been brutally murdered in their sleep.
The crime scene held a detail that baffled every investigator. The killer had covered every mirror in the house with cloths. He also placed a slab of bacon on the floor near his weapon. Some say he feared the souls of his victims looking back at him. Others believe he was performing a ritual that no human can understand.
The Villisca investigation quickly turned into a chaotic circus of failed leads. Hundreds of suspects were interviewed, but no one was ever brought to justice. The local community lived in a state of constant, paralyzing fear for many years. Every creak in their own floorboards sounded like the killer's heavy, silent footsteps. The house stands today, a silent monument to a night that never truly ended.
Think about the terrifying common thread that binds these three horrific tragedies. In each case, the victims were in places they believed were their ultimate sanctuaries. A sturdy tent, a secluded family farm, and a quiet, peaceful suburban home. But barriers of canvas, wood, and stone mean nothing to a determined predator. When help is miles away, your own home can easily become your final resting place. Back at Dyatlovpass, the injuries told a story of extreme, localized physical trauma. Experts suggest a rare weather event, or perhaps an accidental military encounter. Yet, nothing explains the sheer, primal panic that drove them into the freezing night. They chose to face a certain death in the snow, rather than stay inside that tent. Whatever they saw in the darkness of the Urals was far more terrifying than freezing.
In hinterkaifeck, the most disturbing part isn't the physical act of the murder itself. It's the fact that someone watched the family for days, hiding in their own attic. The strange footsteps and the misplaced newspapers were ignored warnings from the dark. The family went to sleep every night with a monster breathing right above their heads. By the time they realized the true danger, every exit had already been blocked off.
The Villisca killer also understood the terrifying power of silence and extreme patience. He waited in the shadows of the house while the children laughed and played nearby. He knew the layout of the rooms and the sleeping patterns of every inhabitant. This wasn't a random crime of passion. It was a calculated, cold-blooded execution. The covered mirrors suggest a man who was deeply disturbed, yet chillingly organized. None of these victims had a single chance to fight back, or even let out a scream. The elements of surprise and total isolation were the killer's most lethal weapons. Whether it was a frozen mountain or a remote German farm, there was no escape. The silence that followed these events is what haunts the investigators the most. No witnesses, no survivors, and no closure for the families who were left behind. We like to believe that we would sense a threat long before it finally strikes us. We think we would hear the floor creak or see the shifting shadow in the corner. But these stories prove that true evil is often remarkably quiet and unassuming. It hides in the places we least expect and waits for the perfect, vulnerable moment. These three events remain as eternal warnings of what happens when the light goes out. The killers of Hinterkaifeck and Villisca
likely walked among us for many years. They could have been your neighbors, shopkeepers, or strangers just passing through. They carried their dark, heavy secrets to their graves, leaving only unanswered questions. The mountains of Russia still hold the final, cold secrets of the Dyatlov hikers. Nature and time have washed away the blood, but the primal fear remains forever. As you sit in your room tonight, take a careful look around your surroundings. Is your door locked? And are the windows truly shut and secured for the night? The families in these stories thought they were safe, just like you probably do now. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing in the world is a false sense of security. The darkness outside is vast, and we never truly know what is looking back at us. These 3 locations remain abandoned or are now eerie museums of a tragic past. They serve as a grim reminder that some mysteries are better left completely unsolved. The people who were there saw the face of terror, but they can no longer speak. Their stories ended in the dark, in the cold, and in an absolute, crushing silence. Good night, and try to remember that you are never as alone as you might think.